All right, clap your hands if you can hear my voice. Yeah, who's ready to rock and roll? Yeah, who's ready to learn Redux? Yeah. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what the problem is that Redux is solving. Can anybody tell me what Redux is about? Anyone? Yeah.
Redux is helping us not to drill props through our app. It's helping us have a centralized state to have all our data kind of in one place, so we're not confusing the components.
Yeah, totally, right? So, right, we've been keeping everything in app here, right? And app's been holding all of this information, all of this state, and then we've had to pass everything through that. So we have some other dog thing, right? And then this gets past the image thing. And then if we want to favorite an image, right? We've had to pass this function all the way along. And then that's going to go update back to here, and then it goes back down, and we're really drilling it, right? But then also if we had another button was completely irrelevant to this component, and there was something here that was some cat component, and then there was another component here that talked about birds. I don't, whatever, right? And then there was a button, and we want to click this button, and when we click this button, we want to fire the action to save a dog pic, right? Then we're it's really getting crazy, right? It's really hard to connect this component to this component, right? We have to pass it all the way down to here, and then it has to go up, and it's this whole shebang, right? So here comes Redux. All right, so what Redux is we've got this store of information, right? So we got this store, and everything can access this store through a connection. So now, instead of passing this function all the way down here, and now app doesn't have its state, app can just go back to being a functional component. And then when we want to favorite the image, now we can just go grab it out of state and pass it directly in. Does that drawing make sense? Any questions on that drawing? I know I'm a bit of a Picasso. All right, cool. All right. So let's talk about so that's the kind of the architecture there of what is going on. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Redux specifically, because it's following this flux pattern, which is this idea of the centralized store of the app, or you might hear it called the app state. This is flux, and it has actions, and it dispatches actions, and it updates the state. We're going to get into all those words that I just said. But Redux is specifically what's going to be connecting our, it's doing that, and we're also going to have this Redux NPM thing that's going to help us connect all that. Okay? You get the game plan? Yeah? All right, cool. So first thing I'm going to talk about is from Redux, we're going to get this thing called create store. Now, this is a function that we get from Redux, and this is going to create that centralized state. So this is going to create that store. So this is going to, well, it's going to create store. It's actually pretty aptly named. I'm not going to label it. This takes in 3 arguments. Only one is required, though, and we're only going to talk about one today, and the other 2 arguments we'll talk about later. But those are reducer, which we will talk about in a minute. Just hang tight. The other optional arguments, then we have 2 optional arguments. So an op, and this is going to be a preloaded state. So this would be if we already had things in a state that we wanted to, when we start our app, it's already in there. Then we can pass this in. It's the second argument. And then the other optional argument is called middleware. I'm not going to go too deep into this right now, but it's a type of middleware you can put in, right? You can put in middleware. This is a third thing, and this will handle something called
Thunk.
which I just want you to have heard the word. You don't have to know anything right now. Okay, but we're going to focus mostly today on this create, store, and this reducer. Okay, so these are the main things. So we're going to, when we fire this, we're going to get this store, and let's take a look at what that actually looks like. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is create a React app. I'm not going to worry about a backend today, and I'm going to go, so create React app, and I'm going to write Redux intro. What's wrong? Did I spell something wrong? Interesting. Maybe I uninstalled my Create React app. Totally possible. I've been messing around a lot lately. Okay, so npm install create react app -g, and it's going to make me sudo it. Sorry. And not name that song. Where's for now? Okay. Yada yada yada. Okay. So let's try it again. Create React app. What the heck? Am I spelling something wrong? No, right?
No, I like the same thing.
Maybe you have to sudo.
I did. All right, well, let's look that up. That's weird. Must be doing something wrong. That's totally weird. Okay. Which looks good. Yeah, maybe I'll try that. Sure, let's do it. Over here, is it? Yeah, I did change like my note the other day. Good man. Who are you?
Daniel from the nights class.
Daniel from the nights class? All right, give it up for Daniel from the nights class. Yeah. Saving me from having to read anything. That's really weird that that changed over a day, but that's okay. All right, so once this gets going, then we can talk about, let's not forget what we just went over at the store, please. You can stay.
Oh, no, I had to leave it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh man, who's gonna help us debug? That was awesome. That's like coming in, fixing, and then like bouncing. It's like a George Costanza kind of like move. Going out on a high. All right. Oh my God. This is like such a process. Thanks, Maureen.
You like this moment?
For the Jeopardy song? Yeah, definitely. Do it. Let's do it. Did it already finish yet?
10 hours.
10 hours.
That's
Who
all.
needs 10 hours?
Oh, okay, and we're back. And Nikki's going to tell us a little bit about herself. And I'm going to one-up it. Okay, so CD, I think we called it Redux intro. Can't even remember the name. Thank you. Okay, thank God. All right, let's get this to run. And we'll pop over to our local host. And let's see exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, a couple things we should do first. So I'm just going to move on over. Is we're going to npm install Redux. as well as React Redux. Okay? So Redux is going to help us with the centralized state, and React Redux is what we're going to use to connect our React components to that centralized state. Right? And maybe we've heard the term slice of state. Has any of us heard that? Oh, okay. So you can think of like we had this app, and you can think about it as like a pizza, right? This was kind of like our test, and we had like a movies section, and we had a people section, and we had a location section, right? Remember that? And so now some of us set it up differently, but pretend we all had this all in app, right? We would have had to go and taken like just the information that we needed from app. And so that's kind of called like a slice of state. So in our store, where we have this store, and this is going to hold people and movies and locations, then our actual components, because it's just really a component, they're going to take a slice of that state. So they're like, oh, this is the people slice. Let me put that into here. So that's how that's going to work. But we'll see it. It's totally confusing the first time you see Redux. So I'm ready for it. Hope you are too. And we should, of course, probably open up a text editor so we can actually interact with the code. Yeah. I don't care. Okay. And we go into our app, and just going to remove all of the usual crap that we have and just write howdy. And we can see that it's reflecting, so everything's cool. We're all hooked up, right? Okay, so I'm going to go into our index.js to just demonstrate this, but I want us to understand that as we get more familiar with this and we get into like more of like these optional things where we start introducing middleware and things like that, we're going to start separating out everything into like multiple different folders and functions. But for now, just as we're getting this like, right now, we're just going to do it all in this index file. This is the beginning of our app, right? This is what we call, we get that root element and we call app. So this is like where the JavaScript starts. Okay? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import from here. I'm going to import the function create store from, where's it coming from? Redux. And what's this going to do? It's going to create the store. Yeah, exactly. It's really well named. So we also need to have a reducer, right? We saw that that was not an optional argument. So what is a reducer? A reducer is a pure function, which means it doesn't mutate anything. It just takes something in and puts something else out that's completely new. And so it's a pure function that is going to be returning like the current state of the app. That's what the reducer is going to be doing. So our create store takes in this reducer and it's like, oh, this is going to be the thing I'm going to pass information into. And what this gives me back, this is what my store is going to be. That's what the reducer is. And it looks a little bit something like this. So I'm going to do const reducer, and I'll eventually will introduce more and more reducers, but today I'm just going to do one. And they will connect like for their specific thing that they'll be interacting with. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Is that better? No problemo. Let's see if I can. Okay. So this the reducer takes in two arguments. It takes in state. This is the state of the application that it currently is. And it also takes in an action. What is the action that our reducer is going to take in? It's going to be taking in, our action is going to be an object. So let me just write that down. So our reducer takes in the state and an object. Okay? This is also I'm going to write for function. The object is just a plain old JavaScript object that will always have one property of type attached to it. And then it may also carry some sort of payload, but it's for sure always going to have a type. Okay, I'll put possible payload.
Is payload also a property?
Payload is, some people call it payload, other people actually call it what it is, which we'll see. We're going to see. It's one of the properties. There's going to be a lot of confusion with Redux. Definitely keep asking questions, but don't be pissed off if I say we'll see. Okay? Promise I'm not ignoring. It's just like, it's kind of a weird pattern that we're going to get used to. It's going to get weirder, but after today, but initially it's still also going to be weird. Okay. So this is a function, right?
At first it's going to be weird, and then later it's also going to be weird.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I introduced myself to my wife. So you'll typically, so I could do an if-else statement, right? But you're typically going to see reducers with a switch statement. I don't know if you remember, but in Unit 1 when we taught the switch, we were kind of like, you probably won't really see this until like Unit 5 when we talk about Redux. If any of you remember that, that's awesome. Congrats. You have an amazing memory. If you don't remember it, I remember it because I said it. All right, so let's do a switch statement. And this expression is our action type. So we're going to look at what type of action we're going to take with our state. So that's what the type is referring to. What type of action is going to change in our state? So for the first case, like let's say, for this example, we're going to build a little bit like of a fruit cart app thing, okay? We're gonna look at the final product and we're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is like super basic. I could have done this without Redux. You're totally right, but it's just an intro. So I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna do add fruit, okay? And I'm gonna have mine taken some kind of payload. So I'm also gonna. So state right now, since it's the beginning, we don't have a state, right? We have no states. We don't know what it looks like. So I'm going to give an initial state or a default state, and then we'll return. So I'm going to say like default state, and I'm going to go ahead and make that here. So I'm just going to say const default state, and I'm just going to have it start as an empty array. Still okay? All right, optional argument. So if we don't give it a state, it will have that state, and our state will just be an empty array. So yeah.
Oh, it's a switch case, never mind.
Yeah, so it's a switch case. Exactly. Okay, so in the case that we want to add fruit, I'm going to understand that I'm passing on some sort of payload, right? I need to know what fruit I'm going to add. So for that situation, I'm going to return my current state. This is basically just me making a copy, right? I'm slicing it or I'm spread operating it. And inside of this new array, I'm also going to add my action dot fruit because I'm going to be adding a fruit. If I was adding photos, it would probably be action dot photos. Some people are also consistent and always would write action.payload. This is the way I prefer it because to me, I like knowing what that payload's going to be. I might be tempted to also call this fruits reducer, but and I might change it to that. Okay, and so then let's do another case. So let's say I also can sell out. And in the event that I sell out, I just want to return my an empty array. Fair? And maybe I'll put a break underneath this. And in the sense that I've called for some action that I don't have to consider about, I have to send a default, and my default is going to be that I just want to return the state. No changes. Are we okay with this? I mean, I know we don't know what it's going to do yet, but are we okay with the code? Okay, cool. All right. So now that we've got a reducer, let's create our store. So right underneath here, I'm going to say let store equal create store, and I'm going to pass in our reducer. So I'm actually going to rename this for now, and I'm just going to call it fruits reducer because that's more specific for what type of reducer this is. So I'm going to pass in our fruits reducer. Okay, that's not too bad yet, right? So what does this function really give us? Well, this is going to give us back the store with a few different properties. We're going to have 3 functions, only 2 of which we really care about, as well as the store. And let's see that. So the way I can see something like that and test something in my browser is I can go window dot store equals store. So what's this do? This puts this variable on the window. Okay? So because of that, and I'll show the difference actually. So if I comment this out and I run my app and I go into my console and I go to type in store, I don't have a store, right? Because we're just in the window of the app. So if I uncomment this out so that I've now put it on the window, I can refresh. Oh, I hate like those kind of things. And I can write store and okay, so now I actually have this store. So hang on. So what's the store have on it? The store has a dispatch. So our store has a dispatch function. What's our dispatch function do? It takes in actions. So this is accepts actions and fires actions. Meaning that it gets sent to the reducer. And then it goes to the reducer. Okay, so when we dispatch an action, it goes and gets fired into the reducer, it gets passed into the reducer. Because we've already talked about actions, right? Actions, this object is an action. And then the reducer is going to change in some way and give us back into state, or into application state, or AKA store. So let's take a look at this. So I can say, let's like open this up. So the other main function that this gives us that we really like, for testing purposes at least, is get state. So our also gives us this get state function. So if we watch, I can go over here and I can fire. Is this big enough? Probably not, right? Is that better? Okay, so I can fire in here. I can say store dot get state, invoke. What do we think this might return?
State.
What is our state right now?
Empty array.
It's an empty array. Okay, good. So we're following along. Excellent. So we get back this empty array because this is currently our application store because that's what we've sent into our create store. We just sent them that reducer and we've got that default value in that reducer, which is an empty array. So now I'm going to show you dispatch. So I'm going to say store.dispatch. And this is going to take in an action. Oh, it shows from something I practiced with earlier. Interesting. Great. So this is an object. Okay, and our object has properties on it, right? It has a type, because we're going to say action.type inside of that reducer. So I'm going to say type, and I'm going to put in quotes, add fruit. Okay? And so, and if we look at our code, our reducer has something to add fruit. And when it does, it's also looking for this action.fruit. So it's looking for the fruit we want to add, because then it's going to add it into our new array. So I'm going to also say fruit, because it's looking for that key. And I'm going to pass in apple. Okay? I'm going to hit enter. I've run the function. Now, if I go and say store.getState, what's it going to give us? Yeah, it's going to, Jen's right. It's going to give us back an array with apple in it. So let's talk about what happened. Okay? First thing we did was we created a store. That store took in a reducer, right? So we have our reducer. Reducer was set with this state of the default state of empty array. So this gave us back empty array. Then we called on our store that we've created. We called the dispatch method. Then we called dispatch, and we passed to dispatch an action that we wanted to occur. So we passed an action, and this action has instructions for our reducer to interpret. First thing it looks at is what type of action did it ask for. So then we went back to the reducer, and reducer looked for type. Once it found its type, it decided to then take its payload, which was for us, fruit. So then it took payload, and then returned our new state. Okay, questions on that? Yeah, AJ.
Is this the pattern you were talking about? Like it's always in this way, you can create store.
Yeah, this is the start of the pattern. It's kind of a little bit of a long pattern, but this is definitely a part of one of the patterns, yeah. Okay, with a lot of hands. Muna.
Can you go back to Apple, please?
Absolutely.
What is the payload exactly?
So action here, this is our object that we made. So we did this object and we wrote type. Remember, we wrote type and we said add fruit. And then we had a comma that said fruit. And we said apple. This is what got passed in. This was the action. The payload that I'm referring to is the fruit apple. So there were more hands. There were like 4 hands before this. Yeah, to keep. Yeah. And we're gonna go over it so many times, so get used to it, everyone. Okay, so we created our store, and we passed our store a initial reducer. And our reducer then runs, and it looks at what its default state is, which we gave it to have an empty array, right? Then, with that store object, we have 2 functions available to us that we're really interested in. One was getState, and we looked and we saw that our state was empty. an empty array, and then we call dispatch. Dispatch fires an action, and that goes to the reducer. It fires it into the reducer, and the reducer looks at the state that it's currently at and the action that it's receiving. Our action for right now is just a plain old JavaScript object. POSO. No, plain old POJ, Pojo. It's a Pojo. I don't know. So, okay, and it looked at it looked for our action.type, and our type was add a fruit. And so I went, oh, okay, let me get the fruit out of the object you gave me. So it looked for the payload, action.fruit, and it updated our state, right? It returned a copy of our state, but now also with the payload in it. And so that updated our state, our application state or the store. And then when we called get state a second time, we then had an array with apple inside. Alex.
So hypothetically, you could put like different function in the return.
Inside of the reducer?
Yeah.
The reducers aren't going to return functions. Just stay with what we got right now. Yeah.
Can you show how you put Apple in? Console?
So in the console, I just did store.dispatch, and I passed in our literal object there. Winter.
So for the action, the object key is always going to be type, and the type will always be the case in our store.
Yep.
And then whatever the action that we're keying to is going to be in the return, and that has to be the key for the action object. Like fruit, like how you
Kinda, yeah, so that's the-
fruit.
We're going to use the payload. Yeah, we're going to use the payload. Now, we don't have to. I could have an app, and I think if you read ahead, you saw the example that Reed wrote where he was incrementing by 1, and his actions didn't have a payload because it was just a type that said, hey, increment 1. So it took the state and returned the state plus 1. So it doesn't have to have a payload. The payload is optional. The type is not. Yeah.
So line window
This is allowing us to play with things in the console. So when we're not stuck in a debugger, anything you would type into the console is being called on window, the window object. And so when I put store like that, I say window.store, that means I'm putting that variable store that we created onto the window so that we can access it outside of the application. Yeah? All right, we got a little break in this. All right, let's keep going. All right, so let's extrapolate this a little bit. Nah, that's all right. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to just comment down our window.store because we've seen it work. And now let's say I want to create something that takes in a bunch of fruit arrays and prints it to the console, right? We've actually done things pretty similar to that numerous times now, right? With our to-do apps and all that. Yeah? Yes? No? Maybe so? All right, so let's go ahead and make that, and then we'll continue what we're talking about. So I'm going to go, ooh, come on. Why is it not right-clicking? That is very weird. Okay. So I'm going to do a new folder, and I'm going to call this components. Components. And inside of our components, I'm going to do a new file, and I'm going to call this fruits index.js. Right, and then I'm just going to do our import statement, import React from React. And I'm going to say const fruits index. And this is going to take in some kind of props that we'll see later. And I'm going to make a, just going to return. And I'm going to have a button on here that is going to say like add apple. Okay, and then I'm also going to have a UL of all of my fruits. So I'm going to say UL / UL. This is another pattern, right, that we should have seen lots of times at this point, where we go like let fruits equal props.fruits .map and .fruit, and we'll do return li and pass in the fruit, give it a key, idx, have to add. Right, this should be pretty familiar. We've done this. This is another one of those like patterns, right? This was the React iteration through a list pattern. That's how I keep it in my mind. The better you can remember the individual patterns and understand them, the easier all of this will become. Okay, so I've got this, and I am going to go, okay, this looks great. Let's see what we can do. Let's import this into our app. We'll go import fruits index. Did I remember to export? No, I didn't. I'll just do it down here. Export default index. That would have been annoying. Import fruits index from dot slash components slash. I did it like this. Right. Okay, and I didn't capitalize the folder name. I could have. It probably would have been smart, but I didn't do that. And I'm going to just return in here our fruits index. Okay. And when we go to our page, let's see what if it freaks out. Yeah, it doesn't like any of that. Okay, that's annoying. What doesn't it like? JSON element must be wrapped and enclosing. Okay, no problem. Right, I forgot to do a couple things. Just gonna put this all in a React fragment. And for your atom, great, okay. And then we don't have property undefined because, well, this kind of brings us to our next question. Where are we going to get those? Where are we going to get those fruits? So of course this doesn't work. We don't have fruits. From store? Yeah, right. We're going to have to get them from store. Exactly. But the question is how, right? That's really what. How are we going to get this? Because in the past we would have got it in an app and we would have just passed it here. But it doesn't seem like we can do that now. So, okay, so we're going to have to get a little bit more creative. Okay, well, this is now connecting that Redux with our store, right? I mean, Redux with our React. Okay, well, if we're going to connect our React with our Redux, I think we had actually got a package earlier that was called React Redux. So maybe now would be a good time to introduce that. So inside of my index.js, I'm going to import another thing. I'm going to say import provider from React Redux. What do you think provider might do? What does provider sound like? Provide stuff? Yeah, so this is another like well-named thing, right? And the way we can use provider is we're at whatever we want in our app to be able to access the store. It gets wrapped inside of provider tags. So I want my entire app to actually be able to reach into the store if I need it to be, right? So I'm going to just go like this. Provider. And I'll move our app into that. Seems like, a comma there. Seems like provider probably needs our store too, right? Because it doesn't magically get the store. So, okay, let's pass it in as well. So this is going to be a prop into provider. I'm going to say store is equal to our store. Okay. Great. There's going to be a little bit of black magic. It's going to get confusing for a minute, okay? Yeah.
So browser router on the side, writing tag.
Yep.
Writer tag.
Browser router can go on in there. Yeah. I'm not going to use routing for this one today, but yeah. Okay, so now we've got this magical provider, which is apparently going to help our entire React app have access to this single store. Okay, that sounds pretty good if it's true, right? Which it is true. There's still one more thing we have to do. Okay, so let's pause in our mind where we are right now because there's something else I want to talk about next. Next thing I want to talk about is remind us about high order components. Does anybody remember what a high order component is? No, that's a lifecycle method. Mateo? Yeah, right. So it's actually a function. So a high order component, or HOC, is the function that takes in a component as its argument. Okay, it takes in a component as an argument, and it returns this component, but inside of its own component. Can we think of any high order components that we've already seen? No, not quite, because browser is not exactly a function. It's actually okay. I'm going to jump because I don't think we saw too much of it. Oh, there was one day we did with router. Is that what you just said? Nice job, Jack. Remember when we did with router and we exported something through with router? Right. So with router was a high order component because it was a function that took in this and then it passed some more information into our component and did something. Right. It's like a supercharged component you can kind of think of. And we're going to make a quick one because I have an example of one that I wrote up earlier. So we're going to pause this fruits index for just a minute, and I'm just going to delete this for right now. And we're going to go ahead and make one more file. And I'm going to say, let's call this like random color. Okay? Say random color.js. And this is also going to import React from React. And I'm going to say const. I'm going to call this random color. And this is going to take in a component. So this component will be the wrapped component. Okay? I know, bear with me. This is weird. This is weird stuff, but that's Redux. And if we can understand this as a simplified version, then we'll be more acceptable with the magic that we're going to show right after with another high order component. So I'm going to make a little array called colors. And let's get fun with it. Let's say red and do orange, and we can do green. What else? What other colors do we like out there? Oh yeah, we got a lot of blues. People like jumped on the blue. Okay, I'm a big fan of pink. I don't know how to spell it. Not going to happen. Purple. That's enough. All right, and let's also figure out what the random color is going to be. So I'm going to say const random color, and this is going to do just a little like, I'm going to key into our colors object and do a little bit of math. So I'm going to do math.floor of math.random times colors.length. Okay, so this will give me back some number within one of the indices of our array, and it will key directly into it, and random color will become one of these colors. Yeah, I can erase it. Good? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we've done this, and this returns a function in itself that goes return, because if we pass wrap component, if that had props of its own, we return those props like this, and we return this supercharged component. So I'm going to say return, and I'm going to do a div, and I'm going to return our wrapped component that we'll be passing in, as well as its props, so that it gets all those props still that it originally had. Okay? But I'm not really doing anything right now, so that doesn't seem like a random color. So I'm going to just hard code this little style in here. I'm going to say style, and I'm going to pass in my CSS. Say color is going to be random color. Okay? And now I'm going to export default my random color. Okay. So you might be wondering, like, what the hell is this? Right? And that's okay. Sorry?
It's like style and class name.
They're different things.
Using style so you get the colors of whatever.
I'm just styling this div inline right here. Not like the best practice, this is just an example of a situation. Yeah, tequila. That's what a style tag takes in.
Did you say that this was an example of a high order component?
Yes.
Okay.
Right? This is a function that takes in a component as an argument and returns that component, but with something else added to it. It's like supercharged. Let's see this. Let's actually see something do this. So right now inside of app, just gonna write like a bunch of text like, hello, everyone, I am super cool and love making React stuff, right? I wrote this from the perspective of all of you. Okay, and so instead of export default app, I'm going to import what we just wrote. So I'm going to say import random color from /random color, and instead of just exporting default app like we usually do, right? Like, because right now this is what it looks like. I'm going to call that function and pass app into it right here. So I'm going to say random color, right? This is the same kind of look that we did with router. And when I save that, maybe that color doesn't show up well. I don't know which color that was, maybe pink. Right, we get a green, I can refresh the page. We get a blue, I can refresh the page, we get a purple, right? So I guess another purple, yellow, orange, I don't know my colors that well. But what we're seeing, it's still everything that's app, but we've just supercharged it, right? We've just added something special to it, right? And so this is like a basic example of like what a high order component is. With router was another one of those. It gave us all of those props, location, match history, objects into our component as a prop, even if we didn't have it in a route. Same thing. Okay, so we've got that. That's kind of fun, but I'm not that interested in this, but I'll leave it for now. And instead, let's go back to our fruits index. And we have to go, okay, well, how are we going to get this fruits index to work? So I'm going to go over to our fruits index. Now, I could write the code right here. And maybe I will, and then I'll move it over. I like to put my code in a separate folder. This is called, what I'm going to call this is a container. This is the word I'm going to use a lot. So, and actually, screw it, I'm going to do it right now. So I'll go into components. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this fruits index container. Okay? So it's the same thing as my fruits index, but with the word container. And that way we can know what this is going to do. In this component, I'm going to use a high order function, and it's going to contain my fruit index. Okay, let's see what that might look like. Okay, so first things first, I have to import another thing. I'm going to import a connect. This is my high order component, although it might look, and it looks new, and it is new, and I'm going to say React Redux. This is something that's part of React and Redux. This is the container, this high order component is going to connect me to the store. That's what this is going to do. And it's also going to take in my component that is going to receive props from that connection. I know, pretty weird. Let's see it in action though. I'm also in my container. I'm going to import my fruit index. Okay. So now I have access to the fruits index in here. And last but not least, I'm going to do something. So I'm going to say export default connect. And connect is kind of interesting. Connect takes in two different sets, two different sets of arguments. The last set that it's going to be taking in here is the component that it's going to be connecting to that store. The component that it is containing. So I'm going to say fruits index. Okay. So far, we're a little bit. Okay. So, what's that? What's the best way to tell you this next part? Okay. It's going to get a little weird for a second. The other thing that this takes is two optional, kind of optional. I mean, you can write null, but they're there. Arguments, and these are two functions. All right, and I'm going to write the names of them. One is called map state to props. Oops. State to props. The other one is called map dispatch to props. Can we make a guess what these might be doing? Yeah, so our state is what? What's our state? Sorry? It's an array, right? It's this, currently it's an array. That's the store. This is the state it's talking about is our store. And it's saying we're going to map from that store these things. So from these things in state, we're going to send them as props into our fruits index. Okay, so that's what that's going to be. And let's take a look at what that might look like. So I'm going to say const map state to props. This takes in an argument. For now, we're just going to pretend it takes in one. It does take in a second possible argument that you can use later down the line. But that's, just don't be weirded out when another argument comes in there tomorrow. Or in a couple days. And this is a function, and this is going to return an object. Because props comes in as an object, right? And so this object, I'm going to define right now, and one key I want in my object is fruits. Where do I get those fruits? Well, I'm going to get those from the state. So I'm going to say, at the moment, it's just is our state, right? So I'm just going to go state. And I am going to do something, okay, and then I'm going to also have my const map dispatch to props, and this takes in that dispatch property that we talked about. Remember that one that fired things? So this takes in dispatch. Also takes in that same second argument later that we'll see someday, and this also returns an object that's going to be in props. But the props that this is going to return are a little different, and we're going to see that in a minute. Right now, I'm going to have to say nothing. I'm going to put a debugger here. Yeah, I'm not going to put a debugger in here yet.
No, P.
What are we talking about?
You're saying that project build props.
Thank you. At the end, thank you. A lot of P's everywhere going on. Oh, well, it still would have worked though. Interesting. Okay. Good though. I like it to be consistent. Okay. Good catch, everyone. Okay, so we have to make one little adjustment, which is now we're not actually going to be calling fruits index from here. We're going to be calling fruits index container. Fruits index container. Fruits index container. Right? That's what we're exporting. This is like the fruits index container that's going to export our fruits index with these things. And just for kicks too, I'm going to put in a bugger up here also. Okay. Hopefully everything will work right now. Should use the word from Redux, so it looks like I made a mistake here. Okay, we've hit our first debugger, and we can see that our state is empty. Okay? If I had other things in our state, we would be able to see that. And when I continue, we are now in our fruits index thing, and we can look at our props. And our props have that fruits property that's being passed in from that map state's props. Like the props.fruits, and we get that empty array, which is our current state. Okay? Here's the fun stuff. All right, so we should be able to see this, and we have our add apple button. Great, brilliant. And I'm also just going to put in a break I don't want. It's on the same line. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove our debuggers for a sec. And say, all right. So we're kind of seeing how things can get passed in. Hopefully a little bit. And so what can we put into our map dispatch to props? Great question. What we can put into our map dispatch to props is one of those actions that we were talking about, that we were doing earlier. Remember when we were doing dispatch and then the action? Yeah. So it's the same kind of thing, only this is going to be passed in as props as well. So this is another props object, key value pair. So let's pretend I have a thing that says, well, add apple. And be a key. And this is going to point to an anonymous function. That anonymous function is going to call dispatch. And it's going to pass in that object for now. And this will eventually get taken out into its own files and stuff. But we'll see that in a little bit. I'm going to say add fruit. And let's give it this payload where we say apple. Okay. Are we kind of okay with that? Kind of? It's okay if it's just kind of. If you're really solid, that's great too, but it's okay if it's just kind of. But hopefully we are at just kind of. Okay. So we saw a minute ago that we could do props.fruits, and we were getting that in our props, right? So now in our props, we also have something called what? What else do we have in our props now? Think about it. All we've done is add map state to props when we saw we had props.fruits, and now we've done map dispatch function with dispatch to props. What else now do we have in our props? Tell me the whole thing. Yeah, we actually have add apple. Right? Okay, also let's take a look at what that might look like before we do anything. I'm gonna put a debugger at the top. Right, this is mapping more things to the application. So now when we look at our props, we can see, oops, roll that up a little more, that we have this fruits array and we have this add apple function. Okay? That's coming from our map dispatch to props. As we're passing that into this container, which is connecting it to our fruits index. Okay, so now I can treat this the same way we've been doing everything, right? Because we've got fruits in here now, we've got a function in here now, so now it's almost as if everything had been passed in from app. That's essentially the state that we're at right now within like the whole thing. So I can get rid of the debugger, and I can add an on-click to our button. I can say on-click. I'm just going to fire props.addApple. Right? And when I dispatch addApple, well, that action is going to get sent to the reducer. The reducer is going to look at the object, and the object, as we saw inside of our container, was this, and it's going to say, oh, it wants us to add a fruit, and then it's going to look at the payload. It's the same as when it was in the console. It's going to say, oh, that fruit is apple, and then it's going to return the new store or state of the application with apple in the array, which is then going to cause a re-render, because it's going to get map state to props, which is going to see the apple in the array. It's going to send that in as props, and we're going to print apple to the screen. So let's see that happen. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to refresh this, and we're going to say, okay, hello everyone, I'm super cool, I love making React stuff, add apple. You go, don't mind if I do. And we got an apple. And I got another apple, and another apple, and another apple, and I can just go crazy with apples. Okay, it's a little like magic, but let's do it again. Okay, so now I want to add an orange. Okay, so instead of adding just an orange in my dispatch, I'm just going to essentially copy this information, and I'm going to write head orange, and I'm still going to be adding a fruit, but this time the fruit I want to be adding is an orange. Okay, and I go, oh, okay, that looks good, and I'm going to add another button here that does again the same thing, but instead this time it's going to say add orange. Oh, okay, let's see how that works. So I go over to here and I say, I'm going to add an apple, I'm going to add an orange, I'm going to add an apple, I'm going to add apple, orange, orange. Aren't you glad I didn't say apple? Okay? Jen? Oh, okay. Pretty interesting, right? A little bit, hopefully. All right, let's have a sell out button, right? Because we also have this action that we like, that we had written called sell out. So I'm going to just dispatch something called sell out. And its type is going to be sell out, right? That's what it's looking for. And that didn't take a payload, if I'm remembering correctly. Because it's not going to do anything, right? It just sends it back to an empty array. So I'm going to go, okay, let's have a sell out. And we'll go back into our fruits index, and I'm going to make another button. It says sell out. Maybe I should call it clear or something, right? But we refresh and we go, okay, we got apple, we got orange, let's sell out, and we get to do it again, right? So now we've got some real behavior.
You show the sell out function
Yeah. It's identical, just got a different type. So it's going to hit that part of the reducer. Renat.
For the most part, so centralized state
Mm-hmm.
is a separate state from the state of React. The store is a separate state, or
It's the state of the application. You can still have state in your React component, which is like a slice of state or that component state.
with the Redux store. That
Yeah.
state is just a centralized state of the application,
Yes.
and is it not interfering with the with like setting state using React?
No, it won't interfere. Not unless once we fire an action, then it will update that state. So the only way that we get to change things is by firing actions. That changes the state, and then we get to see that visualized change. It's a key. Sorry? This is the keys inside of props. Props is a prop object. Key values, right? So inside my props, I have the key fruits, I have the key pad apple, and orange, and so on. These are the values. This is a function that calls dispatch. This is a function. These are all functions that call dispatch. That's why they're in that dispatch props. This is a thing, and this value has some kind of relation to our state. Johnny? No. Only the reducer, that pure function we saw with the switch, that's the reducer. Yeah.
Can you say what the type and fruit are inside of the dispatch object? Like, describe
This says
it.
apple and orange.
Can you describe like why it's type and then fruit? Like what are they called?
Yeah, so these are the actions that we're sending over to the reducer, and the reducer needs the action to have a type to know what to do with it, and then it has an optional payload if it needs to. We kind of okay? All right. It's wild. Trust me, I know. I had to learn it too. It felt super intense. I was taught Redux at the same time as React. That was like really overwhelming. And I think we're really lucky because I didn't know what was React and which was Redux because I thought they were all like one thing. And it took me forever to separate them out of my mind. So I think it's really cool we already have a foundation in React. And this will just be like another layer to add into that as a tool belt, but we can still always just use React if we need to. Nikki, did you have a question? Right, it's just calling to this container. Because the container is rendering our index because it's a wrapper function, very much like our random color. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so let's get a little bit more organized. Everybody knows I can't spell, right? I think we've all seen me mistype things a lot at this point. And so the fact that I am writing these out like this, it's kind of crap, right? I mean, these are identical, so this is a waste. And I'm having to spell things out, and this is a string. And so if I had to say, for example, if I had to say add fruit, if I misspelled, right? What's going to happen? What do we think might happen? Yeah, it's going to go to the default, right? It's not going to throw an error. So I'm going to have no idea, I mean, without doing some serious debugging, why it's not working. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go, oh, okay, add apple. That's orange. Well, I actually don't know why orange isn't working right now, but Maybe I changed something else. That's weird. Well, it's things have broken here, right? In a way that, oh, maybe it's the coloring. Yeah, there we go. It was just the color. Right? Orange still works. Apple's like, it's not working. And I don't know why it's not working. Well, it's not working because it was user error. Because come on, it's always user error, right? Yeah, so now we learned that too. La manzana. It's a Spanish word. Right? Yeah, Spanish speakers? Okay, cool. Pretty good. Okay, so that kind of sucks because that doesn't throw an error. So how can we get around that? No problem. I'm going to go inside of my actions and I'm going to make another folder. This is for organization. And I'm going to call this actions. And inside of here, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to call this fruitactions.js. And basically what my game plan is to make variables that do throw errors when you don't have a variable, right? Whenever you try to use a variable that's not declared, it freaks out. So I'm going to do export const, and I'm going to do add fruit equal to, inside of quotes, add fruit. But one time, right? Now if I spell add fruit, it's gonna go undefined. It's gonna throw an error. In addition to this, I'm gonna do that for sell out. So copy that, sell out. And not only that, but I'm also going to actually create little action functions that we can use instead of having that dispatch and then putting that whole object. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to say export const, and I'm going to say add fruit. And this is going to take in, this is going to take in a fruit. And it's going to return our type, which is going to be add fruit. And if I spell it wrong, it's going to freak out. And as a payload, I'm just going to have it say fruit. Right, this is the ES6. If it's fruit pointing to fruit, I can just write fruit. Right, this is the same thing as if I went like that. But I write it like this because I want people to think I'm current. No, not into this. So I've got add fruit. And so this would all, so now that we're cleaning up here, right? I think now is a good time to take this producer out of my index.js and separate that. So I'm going to go into my files. I'm going to make a folder called producers. Notice how it's plural. Someday we're going to have more. And inside of here, I'm going to make my file, and I'm going to call it fruits producer.js. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slurp up all of this and put that into our fruits producer. A nice little export statement of fruits producer. Okay, kind of okay. I'm just moving files around. I'm also going to import what we had there. I'm going to say import add fruit and sell out, and that's going to be from dot slash action slash action slash fruit actions, right? Okay, so now instead of having that, I'm just going to get rid of our things so that this way it will throw errors if I spell anything wrong. It's just all a protection. I'm protecting myself from my own errors because I'm definitely going to make errors. We know I'm going to make errors. When it comes to spelling and typing, it's going to happen. I have to avoid words I don't know how to spell. That's how bad I am. Yeah.
I can't see yet, like, how it text to see versus file.
What? Great question. So add fruit and sell out are variables, right? And if you use a variable that doesn't exist, it throws an error. It says, hey, no such thing as adds fruits, right? We just have add fruit. So if I threw an S on accident, they would freak out. Say, hey, there is no add fruits. I might write that later. I might write an add fruits, but for now I don't have that. But if I had used just a string, it would have just hit our default statement and return state and failed silently, which we don't want. If we're going to fail, we don't want to fail silently. By the same token, I have to import our fruits reducer into here now. I'm going to say fruits reducer, and I'm going to say from /reducer / fruits reducer. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we've got, so all the code is the same now, right? Except for we still can update our fruits index container. So now instead of writing all this junk, I can go into here and I'm going to import from action. So I'm going to say import add fruit. Did I write sell out? I don't think I actually did I? Time out real quick. Go to fruits actions. I did not. I'm also going to write one for sell out. Export const sell out and nothing, and just return the object type sell out. Okay. Now I've created a little function that returns an object. So now inside of my fruits index, I'm going to import add fruit. I'm going to import sell out, set the sell out from, so I got to find it. I got to go /action / fruit actions. You can see we're going to start getting a lot of folders and files. It's going to get great. And so instead of this, now I'm going to remove this, right? Don't need it. Don't need it. Don't need it. But I do have to pass dispatch something, right? And so what I'm going to pass to this one is going to be sell out. This is going to be add fruit. We'll get past apple and do the same thing to here, but instead this one will be orange, right? It's just like a cleaner way to write it all. Nothing functionality-wise has changed, except for we safeguarded ourselves against spelling error. We've made this that easier to create new ones. And we can check our work here, and we go, okay, get a nice color that we can all see. Green, and I go add apple, add orange, sell out. Great. Okay, that's good, yeah. All right. Yeah, so that actually is as far as I want to take it today. But I will answer like any loose questions here at the end. AJ?
The whole point of Redux is really just helping with scalability.
Exactly. It's really going to help with scalability so that we can pass, instead of drilling these props all the way down into our great-great-grandchildren, our great-grandchildren instead can just go, like, here's a container now that contains them, yoink, and pass it right in.
And that's why this unit is especially funny, right? Because we're going to provide you with a lot of
simple examples, or like relatively simple examples, in an attempt to like describe the syntax and like apply it in the most straightforward way possible. But all of the examples that we're going to show you are situations in which we would explicitly not want to use Redux, right? Because they are way too simple, right? This is super useful when we have like a huge application, but explicitly worse when we have a small application.
Well, it's just over-engineered, right? I mean, I could have made this in about 5 minutes.
Right.
With what we currently know. Instead, I've made it over about an hour, and wildly over-engineered it. Yeah.
Can I see your code again?
Yep.
I'm trying to figure out if this map dispatch to props is another high order function, because I see that it's past, like it's returning.
It's
value.
not. High order function only takes a component in as an
Okay.
argument. Connect is stuff.
Next is the real like black magic of Redux. I like to understand the nuts and bolts of like how most things work, but connecting is how like our best.
So things left to learn, right? I mean, there's a lot, but we're going to learn. This is the intro to Redux. If you got all this, pretty good. If you didn't, sorry, we'll talk about it. You're still going to want to learn Dunk, which is a middleware. This is going to help us with asynchronous functions, right? Currently, we're just sending synchronous actions, right? Just bing, bing, bing. We haven't had to like go retrieve data and then come back. This is going to be for our async. We want to be able to add more reducers. Pretty much it, right? Yeah, that's pretty much all that's left. So definitely like drill this stuff over and over again, and then when we just these, it'll just be a little bit more of a shift in the patterns, but the same overall.
I'm not a big user, especially like maybe just like for stuff that. But yeah, we'll be drilling this a lot.
Can you go through the app files again?
Whew. You guys ready? Okay. Currently, we're doing index.js. This creates store. I might later put this into its own folder called create store or something, or configure store, and it will help set up my store for me. But for now, I'm just leaving that because it's only one line of code. And we pass this, our create store takes in that reducer. What's that reducer? Oh, let's go to our reducers and look. This is a reducer that takes in state and an action. When we first initialize our store, it looks and it just sends back this default state on the default here. So we start with our empty, and then inside, still inside, we pass store to this provider. Provider is going to be providing the store to our React app. Our React app takes the store, and we can use these containers, and the container can reach in to our current store and take pieces out of it that it wants. Specifically for this one, we wanted the fruits, which was just actually the whole state at the moment. Someday it will have more things. And then it's going to send those in as props to our fruits index component. And it also uses this map dispatch to props, which is going to send functions to get fired in as props into our fruits index as well. Those actions are here instead of actions, where I am declaring variables for these strings so that things don't fail silently. And I currently just have actions that return just an object. It's a little bit more flexible though than independently writing each object. That's like most of the action fires. It hits the reducer. The reducer goes, oh, which one is it? Add fruit. All right, here's your current state with that fruit. I'm going to return that. Hot pro tip, I often add this line, object.freeze. This ensures that I won't be able to mutate my state and that I'll only be sending back a new state object. So that's something that's good practice to have at the top of your component.
A lot of different ways people do that. I duplicate the state. I do const new state equals ... state. And then I only work with that new state object, right? So like whatever you want to do, just to make sure that you don't edit the state.
This will throw an error if you try to do it. So there's no way that will fail silently. And then it's going to update that state. It's going to hit back into the container. It's going to now send this in, and then that gets displayed in our fruit index, which looks like the same things we've been writing for weeks now. Just takes in a bunch of props and uses them to display. It's a functional component. Yeah, no problem. Johnny?
Can I ask you about that object.freeze? Does it make a copy of the state? Or is
It's just freezing that current object so that you cannot mutate it. You still have to make a copy if you want to do stuff. Read, it just makes a copy directly, it does stuff. I'm freezing it so it's in kind of control, and then I also make a copy. Like super safety. So I'm like, I don't speed when I drive. I'm like really a cautious person. I don't even eat candy now. But I do drink coffee. Any other questions? Besides, like, I don't get it. All right, cool. We'll hit it again later. Keep working on your projects. Feel free to ask questions on an individual basis.
This is easily the most syntactically complex thing that we cover in this course. Give yourself time.
Yeah. But be excited. It's awesome. Yeah. All right. Go for it. No, yeah, okay. Now,